I want to bring our panel in on the politics of all of this now. Democratic strategist Jonathan Cott joining, along with Denise Gitsham, who's a NewsNation contributor and former Republican congressional candidate from California. Welcome to you both. I want to go back to the news conference, Denise and Jonathan, and play a clip of President Trump on the Ukrainian kind of negotiations, or the negotiations between the United States and Russia, I suppose, about timing. And here's what the president said. Here's the way that he phrased it. I want to see what you guys make of this. This was a short time ago.
We're working very hard to get that war brought to an end. I think we've made a lot of progress. I think it's moving along pretty rapidly. And I want to thank all of the people that are here that have been working on it. And we'll let you know what happens. It'll either be fairly soon or it won't be at all.
Denise, it'll either be fairly soon or not at all.
Yeah, again, this is a negotiation tactic. I think that what he's doing is he's shifting the onus of responsibility from himself for making sure that all the pieces are lined up for a peace deal back onto where it belongs, which is a shared burden. And, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot from like the 30,000-foot level, getting away from the ins and outs of like what Trump says or forgot that he said about Zelensky and Putin. And really thinking about, if I didn't know better, I almost feel like Europe and America are coordinating behind the scenes to play good cop, bad cop. So as noxious as it feels to hear Trump say things that are glowing about Putin and sticking, you know, to Zelensky, I feel like that opens a door for Europe to come in and say, no, we really have to support Ukraine. And then the two sort of superpower Western powers that are such strong allies, as they reiterated 1,000 times today, can come in and say, we're both going to look out for either side. So don't worry. And it sets the tone for an actual peace deal that I think is what they're looking for, which is a lasting one.
Could be. I mean, Starmer had to play both sides of it today. If you really listen to what he said, he said, "Oh, we're all in." That was his quote. You know, we're all in. We're going to do more. There's going to be boots on the ground and all of that type of thing. And I think we also have the clip about when he went to the other side of it and talked about whether you can reward an aggressor, which was, you know, just clear what he was talking about. Let's listen to that.
I welcome your deep and personal commitment to bring peace and to stop the killing. You've created a moment of tremendous opportunity to reach a historic peace deal, a deal that I think would be celebrated in Ukraine and around the world. That is the prize. But we have to get it right. We agree history must be on the side of the peacemaker, not the invader.
So the whole setup there, Jonathan, and then at the end, you can't be on the side of the invader. You can't reward the aggressor was the other quote. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're putting some sort of lipstick on a pig to think that Trump is somehow playing like 3D chess on this. He called Zelensky a dictator. He refuses to say that Russia invaded Ukraine, and now he's blackmailing Ukraine to give up critical minerals to protect them for the next decade. If he didn't have a history of bowing to Putin at every step, yeah, you might think that he's behind the scenes playing some game with the EU, but basically what he's doing is giving everything that Putin wants and telling Zelensky, if you have any hope of holding on to any semblance of peace in your country, you're going to give Vladimir Putin everything he wants, despite the fact that you're currently winning the war against a violent dictator. I just think it's ridiculous that for, you know, I don't know, the last 60 years, the United States has been on the side of peace and, you know, prosperity in Eastern Europe and Western Europe. And now with Trump back in office, we've decided that we're on the side of violent dictators who invade sovereign countries. But we'll have to see. Look, if he's able to end the war and end it in a way that the Ukraine has some sort of sovereignty and gets their land back, then I would applaud him. But right now, all he's doing is going back to his old playbook of giving everything Vladimir Putin he wants and refusing to say anything bad about him. His own Secretary of State cannot even say a bad word about Vladimir Putin when for the last 8 years he's been critical of him. So I think it's a little bit ridiculous to
take up the
have this game where like he's playing this.
I understand, but there's no chess being played. You know, maybe everybody. No, I get what you're saying. Let's take up the Zelensky as a dictator comment because I don't know. Trump's not one for quote unquote walking things back. But this was different today. Let's play the clip from the news conference that we just watched.
Mr. President, do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
Obviously, that was at the Oval Office. We talked about that earlier. Well, this was earlier today. Next question, did I say that? But then when he was asked something similar, Denise, at this news conference, he didn't answer directly. He was asked about whether he was going to apologize. Let's play that clip, actually, and then you can talk about it. This was at the news conference.
Will you take the opportunity to apologize to him for calling him a dictator while praising Vladimir Putin, who is a dictator?
I think we're going to have a very good meeting tomorrow morning. We're going to get along really well, okay? We have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for him.
So, again, I don't know. That's different. That's a different tone. Denise?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably about as close to an apology as you'll ever get out of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense to poke anyone in the eye as they come over to sign a deal with you, right? Like, I do think that Trump is, and I say this all the time on your show and every other show, I believe that Donald Trump is always playing chess. And when we look at the individual moves that are being made by everyone else, it's why we're playing checkers. And I feel like it's why Donald Trump continues to win. His approval ratings are constantly going up on all the things that liberals continue to say about how much they hate about what Donald Trump's doing. They're losing. I mean, Democrats are at an all-time party low on approval ratings for a reason, because they have no response except for, let's go back to what we tried for 4 years under Biden and see if it works. And that's what I continue to hear now. And so if we don't have a new approach, one that's different, one that actually looks at, like, I don't know, psychological, some sort of tactics that get people to pick up part of and shoulder the burden that now they admit Europe wants to actually pick up to do something about their borders and what's happening in the Ukraine. I mean, it seems to be working. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Let me give Jonathan the last minute. We have to get a break in to respond to that.
Sure.
I will say, from my point of view, that this analogy, checkers always gets a bad rap. I don't think it's a terrible game, so I think it's. Anyway, Jonathan, you want to respond to Denise's saying, Trump's always playing chess?
Yeah. I would say the last 4 years under Biden, what we did was we united the world against a brutal dictator. We expanded NATO, and we helped an ally defeat a person who kills his enemies. So I think the world is okay with us continuing that strategy. The idea that Donald Trump is somehow playing 3D chess is just absurd to think. He sides with Putin on everything. That's exactly what he's doing. I'd also point out that during the campaign, he said he'd end this war on day 1. I'm still waiting for that day 40. But look, we can go back and we can debate which side is better, which side has a better foreign policy, but let's not act like he's doing something different other than just agreeing with Vladimir Putin, a man who murders his opposition. He murders them. That's what he does. Yep. And then he invades sovereign countries. There's no disputing that. That's what he does. And now we are on that side. We used to be on the side of freedom and prosperity in Eastern and Western Europe. Now we're not.
Let me leave that for now.
That's both chess or checkers.
That will be the side of peace and prosperity and freedom. A peace deal is what's going to bring that about, not more rhetoric.
Right. Well, Jonathan said that too.
It's only a
get a
peace deal.
Get a fair deal, you would say it. No, I mean, we'll see. I mean, with Zelensky tomorrow, we'll see what kind of deal, to your point, if there is a deal.
The details matter in the deal. If Zelensky just has to give up everything so that his country survives, that's not really
not a deal that wins for everyone. But I did think it was interesting, Trump today with this timing. So it's either going to be quick or maybe we won't get one at all. Don't know how to read into it, but Zelensky tomorrow. Jonathan and Denise today, thank you.